Hello everybody. Welcome to another Old Irix Tutorials. It's been a while since I posted, probably about 6 years. Had to move around and stuff, and I'm finally settled and have the Octane running and hopefully have the O2 running again soon. Today we're going to be covering running Renderman in Maya 4.0. This particular Renderman isn't the Pixar official Renderman. We go here, wasn't able to get that one going. I do have MayaMan running. I figured out how to get MayaMan running, and we're going to cover that today. And MayaMan has, it can run Entropy, which was from the same creator as the Blue Moon rendering tools. I can run Blue Moon rendering tools, and I can run Entropy using the MayaMan that comes with this one. If you pay attention to the beginning, during the machine boot up, there's a section there that talks about, in the list as the machine is booting up, you see this LMNRG, and that is like a server. I had to run that first, and once I ran that, I don't know if you noticed, but the boot up sequence is a lot shorter after I added that. There used to be a lot more text during the boot up, and then after I ran that that license server, it ran it once, and then on the next boot, it was like it showed up in the lister and saying, starting for Entropy. And after that, it was like my boot sequence was about half as long. I'm not quite sure why that is. If anybody has any insight into that, comment below. But otherwise, let's get started here. In order to run, let's see here. If I go here to this Blue Moon rendering tools, I'm going to go to the downloads folder. Here's the downloads folder, and I have this group of software that has been passed around the Irix, SGI group here, and there's Pixar Renderman, and I have this stuff here. I've tried to install a lot of these and tried to make the licenses work, and here's like Renderman Artist Tools, 4.5. Here's a bunch, here's 5. There's a bunch of these releases here, and I haven't been able to license any of them because I would really like to run them, but I haven't been able to get those to work. So the best I could do was getting MayaMan to run, and so I had to run this. If I go to the Entropy thing first, because I was trying to run Entropy, let's go up here, Entropy 31R6. There is a, which one is it here? Is it in the bin? One of these things here has a licensing tool. Here. Yeah, so there's this guy right here, this LMGRD, and I ran this. I can't remember now. It's been like a couple of years, but there's this license file here, and it has all this information. And this works for the Exluna Entropy file here. So I ran this, and you can see here it's got this use server this. I don't understand exactly why, but I ran this first using this file here. I don't know if I was like ./LMGRD, but it ran, and once that was up and running, it's been starting with the machine ever since. So I haven't had to do it since then, and I'm not showing that today. I hope that you guys can, somebody with more knowledge about that. I'm not even sure why I found myself down that, other than it's in this folder. I saw it in this Entropy folder, and I saw this. So I was like, oh, there's a license file. Let's see if I run this. This is like a typical licensing thing. So I was just like, let me see if I can run it. It worked. And then that always thankfully boots with the machine every time, so I don't have to try to figure it out each time. And then the next detail is then trying to get MayaMan running. And MayaMan have it down here, is there's this environment thing. So this is similar to the, I tried the same thing I figured out with the Houdini thing, which is in the Houdini 5.5 and the Houdini 6.5 videos, there were text files that explained, running the environment file. So I just, on the whim of trying that, I thought I'd try the same thing. And so this was weeks of messing around, by the way. So I'm trying to show you guys this really quick. So here, so we'll do this. Let's do the desktop here. We need a shell, and let's do, so in order to get the MayaMan running, I have to run it in a terminal and then run the Maya from the terminal. I was never able to get it to run in like a traditional SO file, like clicking it in the list and making it run. It would never run that way. So out of, fiddling around with things night after night, I tried this, which was, let's see here, let's change directory to downloads, DOW tab, and then MAMAM tab. So now we're in that directory. And then I do the same thing that I would do with the Houdini. I said source, and then I started to type MayaMan.env, and it configures it. And so this was like just me trying that, and it has this file, which is in the FlexLM, and that only was working. I'm not quite sure why this works. It's just kind of like, I have this information in here, and it's somehow, people who know how to do licenses better than I do, I magically was able to coincidentally get this to run this way. But when you would run it like this, I'd run Maya and it wouldn't work. So we still have to get to this Maya. Okay, so user AW Maya, so I have to get to that directory and run it. So change directory down to the bottom here. We'll change directory user AW is alias wavefront Maya 4, and then we'll do bin, right? And then we can run to Maya. Oh, whoops, no, that's not doing it. There we go. Made a space there. Didn't have to. And then so now, because I've run all this, environment in here, and now running the Maya after the environment's configured in the shell, this is just like what I did with Houdini. Now MayaMan loads with Maya. Here we go. There it goes. Okay, so I don't know why this used to auto load. Not quite sure why I have to set that up there, but it's running, and then that's still not enough to get it going. We need to also go into the MayaMan globals, and I have to set this up every time too. So we've got this global thing, and we have to go down to paths. And what happens is this gets changed out. So there's Blue Moon render tools. If we're going to use Blue Moon rendering tools, we have to set the path here, and if we're going to use Entropy, we're going to use here. And I think the same for these ones, like render.c. You can see here there's some lists here, like it needs to know these whatever the source folder is so it can run it correctly. So if we go here, let's see if I can get this. We'll go grab this file here, and we'll say now we just need this directory for Entropy, which is just the base directory. So I think, yeah, it's just this one here. So if we get this guy and we're at the root level here, if you don't do this, it'll make an error when you try to render it. It'll say, hey, I expected this directory and I can't find it. So we go here and I just give it that directory, use path, and here we go. And now this should work. So let's go into Maya. There's that guy up here. Get this going. And then Let's see here, I'll create like that. And then lighten this up. Reflectivity is half. All right, so let's see. We want to create a Fresnel, so we'll do the old school Fresnel. This guy, let's graph here. Graph the network. I'm gonna create a old school Fresnel trick before everything was physically correct in the modern era. White. I forget which direction they go. Let's do this. Let's see, we'll test it first. Black. And then what we need is sampler. Let's see, utilities. Sampler info. Yeah, here we go. And then if we grab all these guys and show the ins and outs. All right, here we go. And we want so shader group connects it to the mesh, sampler info, and the ramp. And what we want to do is we want to tell the ramp to go using the connection editor. We'll say the facing ratio is on the V coordinate. And now that should allow us to spread this ramp based on the angle. So let's test it in the color first. And it's backwards. So the white will represent where it's reflective, and since it's Fresnel, we want it to be more reflective on the incident angle at the side. So we would reverse this guy here. We don't want it to be completely black in the front, but we want to have some reflectivity. So we'll like take this up a smidge and see how that works. Okay, so now we don't want that in the color. So in the color, we'll go back to green. That was something like that. It's fine. And then, yeah, what we want is the specular color. There we go. All right, so then we also want the same thing, and we'll just do this if they have it. Still duplicate shading network. Should make the whole thing again. Yep. So the Lambert. And we'll give that a shot. So, all right, so I just cut forward so you guys don't have to watch me model this whole scene here. I just made a sphere and a cube and some checkered floor, so we have something to kind of reflect and look at. And what we'll do is we're going to create a light. So we'll go create lights. We're going to create an area light. Bring this guy up here because we want to use Renderman's soft shadows. Boom. We'll make this linear fall off at about 20 to test. And we need the ray tracing shadows. And I'll put this at like 8 to start. Okay, so we've got a cool scene here. I'll save this off as a basic scene. And let's take a look at this guy. Now go to Maya, let's go to rendering. Let's go to the MayaMan thing here. So yeah, we've got this. Let's go MayaMan globals and see what we've got set up here. We've got the basic. And we're going to use Entropy. Exluna. Entropy. Motion blur, advanced options here. Kind of going to just try with the default stuff at first. And just see how it goes here. Got that going. All right, close that up, and then we'll go MayaMan. Let's see what we got here for this. We'll do render single frame. Now what will happen is what I do to monitor this, because sometimes it can freeze up, is I like to have a view of the terminal so I can kind of tell something's actually happening. And then before we start that, actually I gotta see what my render settings are. I believe the resolution still pulled from here. Yeah. I'll do like a 720. I think so, right? Like, I don't know if I have to set those here. I don't think I set the resolution here. Okay, advanced. Okay. Okay. Just checking all this stuff here. And so then when we run this, hopefully this is, so I'll make this a TIFF file actually. Then we'll see it activate here. So we go MayaMan, render single frame. There it goes. Now it's starting to run. You can see it computing down there, and then it tries to draw the scene. And so this is the only way, like there's this in Blue Moon Render Tools. This is the way that I have been able to run Renderman and Irix so far. I would like to be able to, because there's options in the MayaMan menu to use the Pixar, although separate from even using MayaMan, if anybody had any information on how to get the Pixar, the official Pixar Renderman, like the Renderman artist tools running, that would be quite helpful. If you guys are on the SGI Discord or in the Irix forums, if anybody knows how to get that, because that would be great to have as something to add to the channel, is like, this is how Renderman operated under Irix as some sort of, so we have some sort of historical reference point into how it worked and what it looked like, just what the tools were like for the artists at the time. Now it looks like on this first pass I don't have any. Looks like the reflections aren't working, so I have to go into the settings and see what I can figure out what's going on with the. Might have to turn on ray tracing in Maya side or whatever, but not bad. 2 minutes. We're 2 minutes something in here. Not bad considering it's Maya 4.0 Renderman. Yeah, hey, it's like a 2-minute-ish render. And we don't have any reflections yet. We have soft shadows, but they're a little bit crunchy because of probably the settings. But there's a Renderman. There's using Entropy, which was created by the same guy who created Blue Moon Rendering Tools. I'm gonna put that up on the screen in the edit. Let's see if we can figure out the reflections here and make this a little bit of a nicer image. So I'll close this guy off, exit. And if I go to MayaMan Globals, let's see here if we have any scanline options. It's got ray tracing options. So yes. Looks like the stuff is turned on. And let's try to do, let's see, for this, let's do 16. Area depth, shadow bias. I'll make those really tiny. I usually like, oh yeah, O1's pretty small. O2 is usually the max that I do. Global illumination. So we could turn this on. I don't know if I want to turn this on yet though. Shadow options. Let's see here. I might be able to shading rate. I think if the lower the number, the better the look is, but we'll mess with that in a minute. Reflection options. I kind of want to make a higher reflection map here, but let's go here because it could be that the render globals hold some of this stuff too. So we're going to go ray tracing on one level. It's been a while since I fired this up. But I do remember sussing all this stuff out at one point. And let's see here, what I want to do is I want to add an ambient light. And then the ambient light I'm going to have low 0.01, just something 0.02, 0.03, 0.1. There we go. So there's that. 0.5, 0.25. Okay, let's see what that does here. Let's save this and see what this looks like. See if it's turned on the. Okay, that was a little bit longer here. Got a little bit like 4 minutes or something like that. But here the reflections are on, so I'm imagining that it is trying to respect the settings that are in the rendered globals on top of the MayaMan settings. And so we do have successful reflections now, and they are being Fresnel'd. We don't have the light itself isn't a reflector card like in Mental Ray and V-Ray and later engines. So we're going to create a reflector card, and we'll see if we can iron these shadows out here. So we'll do, let's see, create, use the hotbox here since I don't have my usual marking menus. Let's create a plane, and then we'll take this plane and we're going to middle mouse drag it onto the area light. What we want to do is, now that it's a child of the area light, the 0 coordinate should be the center of the area light. Yep. You can also zero out its rotation. Oh yeah, we probably need that to be 90 degrees. No. There we go. Move it off the center here a little bit and scale it up. And then this will be options, materials, do a new material Lambert. And its Lambert will be, oops, reflector card. And that's just turn this guy up like that. And we could also, I don't know if Renderman respects this or not. Let's see here, there is render stats. I wonder if we can make the primary visibility off. And if it will, I don't know if Renderman respects these in Maya, but we'll see, we'll find out. So save that. And then we also want to solve the shadow problem. So we got shadows here. And what I do to each shadow arrays are 16. Let's see if I can do, or they're 8. Maybe if we do 24, maybe they'll be a little nicer. But at the same time, let's check the MayaMan globals here. And shadow options. I forget if this is lower is better for shading rate. Let's try to do 3. See if that shadows and renders. Consider surface shaders. Okay. Let's see if that ends up a little better here. Okay, I've spruced up the scene. Edit out the modeling session since that's pretty boring. And let's see what we have here. We've raised the samples of the shadows in both the light attributes and the MayaMan. I've taken the shading rate down. Now let's see if that improves it here. Okay, so here's our image so far, and we do have the reflector card showing up. The shadows are a little nicer, still a little crunchy, but they're nicer than they were before. I can't remember how far I took it with the teapot image. I had a teapot image I posted in the Irix forums. And I'm going to do one more render of this just to get, I want to get the ambient light up so if it looks a little nicer, and we'll get the black of the checkers up so we can see the shadows across them a little better. Okay, so here's our final image here where I added, cylinder, We have a reflector card. I brought the ambient light up quite a bit, and the shadows are still a little crunchy, but they look pretty good for what we're doing here today. Yeah, so this is pretty good basic scene setup. And what I'd like to do before we finish the video is I'd show you another one of Renderman's features, which was amazing for its time, which is the micropoly displacement. So I'll make a little flat plane and we'll put some displacement on it and I'll show that working. I'm going to call this like placement. And let's check it out in the hypershade. Graph it. Here's our displacement shader. What we'll do is we will grab something from, I'm going to use textures, yeah. And we'll try to put a fractal on here. See if I can get this to work how I used to get it to work, which is what we want is this shader group. I think let's see if it'll automatically set it up for us. If I hit this, yeah, it'll put a displacement shader on it here. Let's see if that works here. That away. I'm wondering if I can model attributes. Okay. What we want, displacement bound. Yeah, there's something here. The Renderman with displacements here. Let's see if this works real quick. See if it gives us some sort of displacement map. Okay, yeah, so here's our first attempt at running the displacement. And yeah, without the displacement bounds, you're going to get this kind of shredded mess. This is something that you had to manually set back at the beginning. Nobody thinks about this now. You set the displacement, you turn it on, you set the amount of it, always draws that correctly. But back in the day, you had to mess with this stuff. I'll see if I can get it right. I did successfully do one a year or so ago when I was first playing with this. And so we have these MayaMan attributes. Okay, so I did in the shape node, in the shape node of the object plane here, I did a calculate bounding box scale. It acts like it freezes up Maya for a while, but then it gave me this 1.8. So I'm going to go here and see if we do this as like 1.9 and see if that will help with the displacement here. Let's see. Optimize displacement bounds. What's that? Okay. And then let's see, just see if that helps here, and then we'll go render single frame. We'll see if it makes it any better. Okay, so this one was successful actually. So I set those displacement bounds using that calculate, and then put it in the MayaMan attributes there for the displacement. I can't see them right now because it's blocking it, but yeah, and you can see this renders perfect now. It doesn't have all the shredded mesh, and it's pretty cool detail. Like, this was a cool way of getting a lot of small power detail into an image, and Renderman was offering that exclusively back in the 90s. They were the main one that could do it, and it looks really beautiful. And this is just fractal noise. I could put like the cloth pattern on there or something, you'd see it pop up. But it's pretty cool, successful test there in such an old render engine like Entropy, which was in the 90s. And I think that'll wrap up the Renderman thing. I'll show some. I do want to talk about. I did a test of the scene here. Let's see. We'll save this and see if I can load up my teapots that I did here. I had these guys and rendered examples of this scene on the IRIX forums. Forums.irixnet.org is where I did example renders of this scene. This takes a long time to go. And the thing that's amazing about this scene was this was originally the teapot walking outside the little Renderman tin box here was one of the first Renderman tutorials that was ever made. And at the time that I did this render test about a year and a half ago, it was like January of 2024. For whatever reason, I had this link saved in an old browser to that, and it still had the original scanline Renderman scene file. You know, before they were doing ray tracing, it was just, you know, scanline shadows and scanline everything, and rendered pretty quick. And so I downloaded that box and kind of remodeled it so that it would go, and then imported it into here as geometry that would render a little better. And set these guys up here, these little teapots, and I'll post an image of that. But and this was done with Entropy also, the images I'm going to show you here. And I did it with, trying to turn on all the bells and whistles. Like at the time to render that, it was like a 23-hour frame or something like that. Like nobody would have turned all that stuff on, but in retrospect, I know how to get an old school renderer to look and act and behave like a modern renderer a little bit, like cheating it. And I was surprised how well Entropy was able to render the image, considering the time it was made. The Blue Moon render tools were created by a guy named Larry Gritz. And Blue Moon rendering tools were developed by Larry Gritz when he was at Cornell University, and then he developed during the early 90s, and then it was first published in 94. And then he was hired by Pixar to work on their photorealistic Renderman project. And then later he created, in 2000, he left Pixar to form a company called Exluna, whose flagship product was Entropy, which is what we're using now. And which is a Renderman based on the Blue Moon rendering tools with additional features like, ray tracing and all that. But the Pixar sued Gritz and Exluna for a variety of like patent and trade secret stuff and copyright issues that were denied, but the case was settled and he discontinued Blue Moon rendering tools and Entropy. So in a way, we're looking at an old defunct render engine that had potential but was ultimately shut down because it was a competing product. Maybe took too much inspiration in quotes from the stuff that Larry learned while working at Pixar. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. There's more of these direct desktop captures of the Octane and my O2 and these Silicon Graphics 3D softwares coming in the near future. Thanks for watching.